Hi, my name is Aunica Vargas, and for my action project, I'll be discussing the housing discrimination faced in La Brea, California. To start, I wanted to talk about why I chose this topic. A couple of the reasons I decided to research the housing discrimination in Brea is because it shows a connection between housing insecurity to social injustices. It physically is close to where I'm from, Chula Vista, and it allows me to highlight issues people of color face, such as gentrification, displacement, and inequality. To summarize what I researched from the Unvarnished History website, I will take you through a timeline of the development of La Brea throughout the years to present day. It starts in 1894 when Brea was formally established as the city of Randolph when the Spanish expeditions caused an oil discovery in the area. The discovery of this oil led to a booming economy based on the product, but also on its rich land for agriculture. Property was owned in sections called rancheros, with a Union Oil Company buying 1,200 acres for its newfound economy. Now we move on to the 1920s. This is when you can really start to see how the people of color in La Brea were negatively targeted. Wealthy, most often white people, owned their homes in the city. Ordinances were passed in Brea in which alcohol, loitering, and quote-unquote vulgar behavior was regulated, which they used to target people of color. The wealthy people referred to them as undesirable and nuisances. Moreover, African, Chinese, and Japanese workers were forced to abide by restrictive covenants where they couldn't own property in La Brea to make areas quote-unquote more desirable and white-only towns. This in turn led to the development of quote-unquote sundown towns, or areas where once the sun went down, it wasn't safe for people of color to be there. They even had a large amount of Ku Klux Klan members in Brea. In the 1940s to the 1960s, we start to see increasing immigration after many laws drove out Chinese and Japanese workers from the area. Mexican Americans started to fill the gaps in labor for them, with California passing an open border policy. Despite this, the Mexican Americans still weren't really accepted by those in Brea, and they lived in segregated camps in the agricultural land. Moreover, oil production started to decline around the 1950s, giving rise to the housing market as Brea's new economy. With people of color not allowed to live or own anything really, the people of La Brea were able to market and expand more quote-unquote whites-only suburbs, in which they argued was to increase the housing value. Getting closer to present time, throughout the 1970s to the 2000s, La Brea started having redevelopments in the city. In 1977, after the development of the 57 freeway for accessibility, the Brea Mall opened. This increased tax revenue and led the community to have a higher wealth status with exclusivity to those who could afford to live there. But this led to a fear of decline from those who had previously lived there because the mall took away business from smaller shops in the downtown. This led to the start of redevelopment as there was no activity downtown anymore, and the redevelopment demolished the properties of many Mexican Americans to make more space, thus displacing those who couldn't financially fight the seizure of their property. Finally, we're at present time, where the city and people of La Brea are working towards a better future of inclusivity. As of now, Orange County, which is where La Brea is, takes part in the Fair Housing Council, which provides services for equal housing opportunities. This has helped increase diversity as now instead of being a quote-unquote white-only town, Brea is 42% non-Hispanic white, 32% Hispanic or Latino, 22% Asian, and 2% Black or African American. Although they are making progress, the city relies on over 60,000 workers for its agriculture, in which they still truly can't afford to even live there or own property there. This shows that there is still work to be made to ensure a truly equal community. Now that I've covered the history of La Brea and its housing discrimination, I wanted to talk about some of the things that stuck out to me as I was researching. The first is that when talking about the 60,000 workers who can't afford to live in the city, we can compare it to the 44,000 residents of La Brea, and this just stuck out to me because there are more workers than residents. This shows the dependence on the workers' skill, yet it's sad that they can't afford to live in the city that they provide for. Also, when the city was going through redevelopment, many citizens pleaded for them to stop in order to preserve their homes. There were even people like William Vega who not only sued the council, but also ran for council twice to try to stop the development, but his efforts had no avail. This stuck out to me because it shows how the city cared more for the increase in quote-unquote wealth and exclusivity more than those who worked and lived there. Moreover, with the opening of the freeway to increase accessibility, you would think that people with various backgrounds would come and inhabit the city, but like I previously stated, the redevelopment and exclusion of wealth due to the mall made sure that there wasn't much diversity. And finally, I wanted to talk about how in the mid-1900s, many of the residents of the city of Brea were part of what was called the John Birch Society. And this was actually a group of members to actively oppose the civil rights movement, which showed the true feelings of how they didn't want to expand the inclusivity of their community. Some of the things I learned throughout this research include number one, how although we can claim it's different now, La Brea's growth was built on systems that excluded people of color. Number two, economic development benefited wealthier white residents while displacing poorer families. Number three, policies disguised as quote unquote safety or quote unquote property value were used to keep certain groups of people out. And number four, the housing crisis today can be connected to these past injustices. After learning so much, I now have personal opinions about what I learned, and some of the ways I feel are that number one, I feel frustrated that so much of this discrimination was intentional and accepted for so long. Number two, it's eye opening to see how deep the roots of inequality go, even in places that look diverse now. Number three, I feel more informed and empowered to support fair housing and inequity. And number four, this showed me how important it is to question local history and push for more policies today. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation.